Welcome to Pay Attention, a podcast guiding you from the chaos of the mind to the clarity of the heart. Here's your host, Holly McNEILL.
Hello, and welcome to December 31st, 2025. Today marks so many things. It is the this is the last day of the first quarter of the 21st century. I remember when it was going to change to the year 2000, and I thought that would never come, and here we are 25 years in. I know that anyway, but I'm pretty aware of where we're at in the new year because New Year's Day is my birthday, which sounds cool. People are like, that's really cool, but actually it's not super cool because most people are hungover on my birthday and it's just a week after Christmas and people are like, oh yeah, it's her birthday. But I have learned to embrace it. This day marks the last episode of our first season of Pay Attention. So thank you so much for being here to celebrate this last episode. I'm excited to get into season 2 next year. I learned so much this year. My heart is open and grateful to all of you. This is my first podcast episode without a pre-recorded middle section. So yikes, we'll see how that goes. And of course, it's New Year's Eve. So happy New Year's Eve, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Today I want to talk about, this is how this episode is going to go down. I want to talk about New Year's resolutions and why most of the time they fail and how you can change that. Then I'm going to launch into my story a little bit about intention and attention. And then I'm going to invite you to, in the comments, either if you're listening live or down the road, to write your New Year's resolution in the comments. Let me know how you're doing or what your plans are for the new year. But let's get into it. Why do New Year's resolutions tend to fail? Well, at the beginning of the year, everybody's into it. I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to get that new job. Everything it's right in the front of your mind. It's in the present moment. You're aware of it. You're present for it, right? And this is what you want for your life. And this is what you hope for your life. And that's wonderful. But you create your life. You create your world. You identify with whatever it is you put your attention to. And of course, at first, that New Year's resolution, that want for change is first in your mind. It's right there. But then life happens. You go back to work the next Monday, you start going on the daily grind, and a lot of the times we live on autopilot. Our attention goes elsewhere. Our attention, when we're not aware, when we're not conscious, is somewhat kind of missing, right? We are on autopilot. And when that happens, the brain, the mind, creates from whatever it finds in your subconscious powerhouse. Now, 95% of all that you create, of all the habits that make up who you are, of all that you identify with, of your personality, all gets developed below your level of awareness in that subconscious powerhouse. And when we're not in the present moment, when we're not paying attention, the mind goes back to that subconscious warehouse to pick up things and ideas and patterns that we live our lives by. And it finds all kinds of things in there, especially from childhood, those early formative years, those patterns that we developed to help us stay safe, to create a world that we could live in, but maybe have outgrown. you find in there anxiety. A lot of our thoughts are negative, and anything we've repeated over and over and over again is going to be in that subconscious warehouse, that powerhouse. Anything we've forgotten yet we're living from, it's all in there. And that's where the mind goes when you want to make a decision, when you decide what's next, when you decide what you're going to eat for dinner. But I can tell you one thing that's not in that subconscious powerhouse of yours, and that is that New Year's Eve, New Year's Day resolution. Oh my gosh. Because in order to get into this powerhouse, in order for an idea to make it into your subconscious powerhouse, it has to have enough of a neural connection. It has to be repeated enough times. It has to be known to the mind, where the mind can go, okay, here's a new idea that I'm going to bring in, protect, and utilize. And that is where attention comes in. So if you want your New Year's Eve resolution to work, if you want to really create it in your life, if you want it to be part of who you are, you make that intention and then you bring your attention back to it over and over and over again. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about my intention. It wasn't exactly a New Year's Eve resolution. Oh, I can't say that word. It wasn't a New Year's Eve resolution. It was something else. It was a vow I made to myself when I hit rock bottom. And sometimes to make change, to really find that change we want to make and stick with it and keep our attention on it, we do have to, I guess, hit rock bottom as humans. And at this point in my life, I was 34, and it was a really super horrible, horrifying time in my life. And it's very personal and it's very intense. And I've agreed to tell that story on another podcast in a couple of weeks called The Stories I'm Telling Myself by Rita Ernst. So if you want to hear how I got myself in such a low place, tune in there. So I found myself crying on the toilet in the middle of the night. This place I was in was life-threatening. I was worried about my future, my children, and I'm sitting there, and it was so low, and I knew that there had to be better. There has to be better than this. I didn't know what it was. I was so lost, so stuck in my old patterns, only seeing life through the anxieties, the low self-worth, the unlovability that I believed that I identified with, that was in my subconscious powerhouse. I was so stuck in that, but it hurt so bad that I knew, oh my God, there has to be better than this. So I made a vow that night to God, Buddha, the universe, anyone out there listening, help me out of this and I will change. Give me another chance and I will do better. I believed that I could do better. I believed there had to be better. And I got that second chance. So with my karmic debt in tow, I went out to make good on that vow. And it was a vow, much like New Year's resolution. And it wasn't something I was ever going to let go of, because that place I came from was so low and so painful. I wasn't going to stay there. I had another chance and I was going to make good. And the first thing this did was to catapult me out of a mutually manipulative and controlling marriage and into an 8-year battle for my kids, which was hell, right? So it's like, all right, life, I'm looking for better. So when you're looking for better, you believe it's out there. You believe it's out there, right? And then you're aware and awake and wait and be conscious and pay attention to what shows up. So the first thing that shows up for me is this 8-year horrendous battle for my 2 children. And if you want to know more about that, head back to the Thanksgiving episode. So, I held on to them for 8 years because I knew how important it was, but it was horrible. Court case after court case, police episode after police episode, destroyed apartments, dealing with my ex. It was really bad. But in making this vow and making this intention and giving my attention to it, things started to show up to help me along my way. Things started to show up to help me along my way. It started when I walked into a Barnes & Noble in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was living in South Dakota, working across the state. And then on the new arrivals table was Cheryl Richardson's book, Stand Up for Your Life. Picked it up, I opened it, and in the introduction it says, be careful what you ask for, because when you ask for change, the universe will come in and rock your world. When you're paying attention to it, when you're looking for it, when you're keeping that intention, it will send you the right people, events, and situations to help you along your way. And that is exactly what happened. I read Cheryl Richardson's book. The next one to show up was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life, Wayne Dyer's There's a Spiritual Solution for Every Problem. And so while I was going in this, while I was in the heat of this battle, which I needed to go through. I was so self-absorbed, so anxious, so I don't know all the words I was, but I needed to go through that. I needed to stand up for my kids. I needed the fight because I would stay strong in front of the kids. I mentioned this before. And in front of the police, in front of the lawyers, in front of all of that. And then when they would leave for the weekend, I would crumble to pieces on the floor. But with that intention to find change, every time I picked myself up, I saw myself a little different. And in these books, if I had a question, the next thing I read was the answer. Or maybe it was somebody who walked by and I heard a conversation. And so for that 8 years, that held me. That vow, that intention kept me going in the heat of all that battle. I eventually moved to Minneapolis to do more with my spiritual career, to do more with my career as an architect. There I did, things again kept showing up. I was always on this path. Actually, I wasn't always on this path. There was a time when I remember when I first moved to Minneapolis from the Black Hills of South Dakota, and I thought to myself, wow, I forgot my journey. I'm not on that path anymore. And boom, life just like hit me in the face with more struggle. So I vowed not to ever fall off that wagon again. But in Minneapolis, I did John Kabat-Zinn's 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course. I checked out Zen Buddhism, and I found Common Grounds, which is a lovely Buddhist center. And about 10 years into my journey, I realized, you know what? I have something to say here. It's not just about me anymore. I'm learning something here that's important. So at that time, I put 2 vows, 2 more intentions out to the universe. The first was to retire from architecture before I turned 50. And the second was to have the time and space to write about all I was learning, all that was unraveling, right? And speaking of unraveling, that is the journey, finding that awareness. I didn't know it at the time, but our minds are so solid and seem so solid and real from all of that stuff in our subconscious powerhouse. But the journey to better, the journey to peace is softening that, unraveling that. And I was finding my way. Eventually, wanting even more, I moved to the greater New York City area. And it's just really, truly amazing to me how things showed up. I was working in Stamford, Connecticut, looking for a mindfulness class or a meditation class. I Googled it, and within a mile of my work, there's a meditation class. I go to the class. It's the new Kadampa Buddhist tradition. Don't know anything about it. And it was on compassion or love. It was lovely. And the second class, as I'm leaving, I hear somebody walk up to the teacher and say, is there a deeper study group? Is there a deeper way, a deeper path for these practices? And she goes, you know what? We just finished a study group of 5 years. And in 2 weeks, we're starting a new 2-year book study on the new heart of wisdom, which is all about emptiness. The new heart of wisdom is all about emptiness, the biggest teaching in Buddhist studies, practices. And there it was for me, a book study group. And I was there and I was available for it. And I went week after week with that intention in mind. And when I read things, I could see what it was trying to tell me. And it's, again, continuing to loosen all of these beliefs in my head. And about a year into this study group, I decided to, at 49 years old, pack up everything I had, leave everyone I know, to move across the country and take a job still with my office, but working for Stanford in California. This job was in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. I'm from South Dakota. Oh my God. And I didn't know a soul there. I didn't know anyone there, not one person. Who does that at 49 years old? And I talked to the teacher, the Buddhist teacher, and I tell her about this, and she goes, you know what? We have a community. This brings me to tears. We have a community in San Francisco, a Dharma house that you can stay in once you get there. So I got my car. I drove all the way across the country to live in a Buddhist Dharma house in San Francisco. It was amazing. It was an experience of a lifetime, and it was all part of this journey, all part of this intention. And when I got there, they were studying the same book and just pages away. So although I loved my teacher in New York, she was so amazing, I still got to finish the book, which was, amazing. I'm still amazed by this. I should have written everything down, because these daily miracles kind of happen, well, obviously daily, right? So I practiced, I finished the book, and there I am in San Francisco, and I retire from architecture 2 days before I turn 50. I moved down to Orange County, and I sit down to write all that I had learned, I had the time and space to do it, to figure out what this journey means for me, to figure out how I can share it with others. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote for 6 years. I wrote, and I'm printing out a book proposal for the Hay House competition. And I look over the pages. Of this book proposal, and it's like the lights came on. I could see a straightforward set of mindfulness and meditation practices based on that circuitous route I had just taken. Wow. And the book hasn't come out yet. Maybe it won't ever come out yet, but that writing got me there. That step by step. I was speaking to a woman who has been in Buddhist practices for years, and she says, this is available for everyone. I believe it as well. It is work to keep your attention on the prize, day after day after day. It's not a lot of work, but if it's something you really want and you really believe in, you have to keep your attention on this intention and be open to what shows up. So 2021, Per Love is born, the Per Love practices, and I'm pushing them out, and I'm trying to push them out, and I'm pushing them out, and I am hitting roadblocks like you can't believe. I do all of this work. I work my ass off, right? And and nothing's coming. Nobody's hearing it. Nobody's hearing me. I get frustrated. I get tired. I give up, but I keep pushing, only to realize that pushing was part of my ego, right? Part of my need to be somebody, and part of my need to show the world who I am and what I've done. And eventually, when you unravel all of this, you begin to realize, wow, wait a minute. When you unravel all who you think you are, when you find the space between all of those crazy thoughts, and you spend time in the now and out of that subconscious warehouse. When you don't spend time in that subconscious warehouse, those thoughts and patterns have no choice but to start to loosen. I remember the moment when I realized that's not who I am. I am not actually, I was given that name, Holly, when I was born. I didn't have my first thought. No one has their first thought until they're 6 months old. I am awareness watching these thoughts. So as I went along my journey, pushing these practices, hitting all these walls, I decided to step back. I decided to step back and just let happen whatever happens. I don't know if giving up is this right word, but I'm just, you know what? I don't need this. I no longer needed anyone out there to hear what I had to say. I no longer needed to be well known. I no longer needed to prove anything because I am awareness. I am love. I am consciousness, as you are as well. And when I step back, and every time I step back, right, life starts to flow. You know, every time I'm like, I'm done, I'm out, life would start to flow and something else would start to show up. So here I am today, and I started this podcast a year ago, and the platform was small 3 or 4 months ago. I got this new live platform with my new producer, and here we are. We're all here today. And so maybe this is it. Maybe my message is ready. Maybe you're ready to hear it. I'm just going to let it flow. I'm going to believe that I'm still on my journey to awakening to awareness, but I'm going to tell you right now what my New Year's Eve resolution is. So my New Year's Eve resolution has been 4 years, and I know that people roll their eyes when I say this. It is what the Buddhists believe. I think it's part of the Bodhisattva life, is to first attain enlightenment, awareness, clarity, understanding, and then to liberate all living beings from suffering. Yes, and that's a big one, and right? And people look at me and roll their eyes, and I'm like, whatever, I'm doing it. Go big or go home. But additionally, my New Year's resolution is to live in the present moment with an open heart so that I can serve whatever shows up. I'm here, I'm open to serve, to create in whatever way I can from now, from my birthday, tomorrow, to however long I'm here, to share what I've learned for anyone that wants to hear it. So thank you for listening to my story and my intention, which has been fruitful. And it's available, this power of intention, this power of belief, if you put your attention to it. So now I invite you to make your own New Year's resolution, as we always do, with your open heart. What is it that you want? What is it that you want for your life? What is it what you want to see in the next few years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And then I invite you to go back to it. Pay attention to it. Believe that it's possible. Feel what it would feel like if it's there. There's so much in the universe pulling for you if you're paying attention. If you're not, of course, that subconscious powerhouse is going to dig out whatever old habits and patterns are in there and make them stronger. The whole reason I call this podcast Pay Attention is because you are the creator of your world. You are very powerful, and staying present and making those intentions with attention is going to get you to wherever you want to go. So I hope if you're listening to this now or in the future, give me write in the comments what your intention is and what you want, and write it down for yourself. And remember to come back to it. No intention without attention will survive, but intention with intention and belief and being open and awake and aware for what shows up is what you can create and create anything. Happiest of New Year's to everyone out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. as we finish our first season. And I look forward, I'm so grateful to have found you, to be here with you. And I look forward to seeing you next year on the second quarter of the 21st century here on Pay Attention.
Thanks for watching Pay Attention with Holly McNEILL. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week on Wednesday at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern.